like to welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open the roll call.
Goodell?
Here.
Slater?
Here.
Scholl?
Here.
Davis?
Here. First up, I need a motion to approve the agenda as printed. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the July 6, 2015 regular council meeting.
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Under communications, anything from the public in attendance this evening? If not, Clint, People's Service Monthly Report.
Good evening. Water plant, we're still running.
That's a good thing.
That's good. Positive, you know, yeah.
As opposed to what?
Again, this little stuff working out, but the engineers were up last, it was a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, and they got together with electrical engineer Fox, and they're trying to, we're getting a little closer. The generator, for some reason, when it goes through its once a week exercise, will throw the alarms inside the building on both the spring side and well side slakers. You clear one, go clear the other one, then you're right around the next day. And they've got it pinned down to some electrical issue between the generator and what ties in, and they're trying to chase that down now. So, but what we did was we changed the start times to a different time, and for now it seems to be okay, but they're still trying to track down what's causing that, because they said it shouldn't, so, you know, they'll stay in alarm for the whole time the generator runs for an hour. So, hopefully they'll get that, track done. Line press, that's working good. We had to order some new, cloths, the filters for them. They're starting to tear already, so we've got those on kind of a, every so many months we'll order a few just to have on hand. They're not cheap, I'll just put it that way, so, but,
What do we do with the line now?
they're hauling it out to, they're going back from Jensen out to the, quarry,
Yeah.
out to the old quarry. I have no idea what them guys are doing with it.
So we never did find a source?
No, we
Wanted
never
it, it's just-
found, we had people that were
It's really over
interested,
what we
but
did
then they
before
just
then.
never,
So we don't haul the truck, we keep
I
it?
think, yeah,
Yeah.
I think Aaron did a little research
Yeah,
on that too.
I talked to, yeah, you got some lab ratings on.
Yeah, got
online,
the
and I
crop
talked to
value.
a few of the, the co-ops and whatnot, and could not find really anybody who was
Huh.
interested in it. So, I mean, it's, the most efficient is hauling it out to the quarry there, I mean, which is cheaper. We were hauling it to the landfill for a while.
Because it's a dry chemical now we haul it?
It's a kind of a moist cake, kind of a
Okay.
wet, I mean, you can make something out of it, but they're big square cakes.
And it dries eventually then?
Yeah.
Yeah, which was causing problems when it's really cold out. They would drop it into the truck, and by the time they were getting down to Fort Dodge,
Yeah.
it was starting to get a little frozen when it was really cold out. So, that was causing issues, but,
Mhm. Yeah, frozen, so that's
I mean,
working out.
it'd be nice to have somebody take it and use it, but the problem is, there's so much of it, and you don't want to, this haul a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit, you really need a place to stockpile it. And any of the interest has been small quantities. That's why we wanted to talk to the co-ops to see if they would stockpile it and then apply it to the fields when it's time.
No interest in that?
Haven't had any interest, and I don't know if there's just not much money in it, or how much need there is around here for line. I'm not familiar with whether that's a big need or not. So,
Quick question on the plant, maybe Aaron can answer this, but warranty started what? Final major completion time date, or when does it actually, warranty on the items start that we've got, at the end of the plant deal? Is that?
I don't know, is that,
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't.
I'm just curious, 'cause I-
Major completion? Is that
Well, that's
when
what I was
that-
curious, because
I-
we're still fighting issues. A year from now, are we still fighting issues and all of a sudden we're out of warranty? I guess is my question.
Yeah.
Is at what point do we run out of warranty on things, or they'll come back and fix it, and we don't have any more?
Do you
Yeah.
have any experience with that kind of?
Yeah, it's
What's normally?
usually your maintenance period, which is signified by your substantial completion.
So when we hit substantial completion. we're
Have you
still-
done final acceptance? though?
No, we've not
Yeah.
accepted. It's still substantially.
Sometimes you wanna check that
Okay.
EJCDC document to see if it's issued when the substantial completion is issued, or if it's issued when there's the final
Yeah.
acceptance. It's usually substantial.
Okay, so it just seems like we're just not
Yeah.
getting over some of these issues anyway. And if we're gonna fight them, and then all of a sudden they say, well, you're out of warranty, and all of a sudden we're paying a bill for some, major fixes here.
Yeah,
I
and the thing would
tend
be
to
to
follow
know
that way.
if you're at that point, you wanna notify them that you're continuously having issues, that
Mhm.
there'd be a bonding company discussion with them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just what,
Yep.
it was something I thought about the other day.
Yep.
It was just, where are we?
It comes
on
up.
this stuff
Yep.
anyway, so.
And I think
Like I say, it's not,
yeah.
you still can't say it's running perfectly, and, everything's over, and it's, it
Right,
just
right.
seems like we
It's
just
a little-
kinda keep fighting those
and it's,
little.
like you said, it's
gremlins,
a
and
continuous little.
Are they gonna run it out till they
Yeah.
can walk away, and then it's,
Right, there are some valves too that actually they did IPT replaced them.
Okay.
This last week they were there, that was still under the warranty, so, but, and again, that's like you said, it's just always the little, keeps coming along. So, and then, let's see, we, completed we just started our lead and copper testing, we're into it's been 3 years already, so out of the 20-some samples, they've got 8 or 10 already, so we'll be sending those in, so. Wastewater, we're still, working on a clarifier out there. Got through June, our rainy month, we were real close to bypassing, but we didn't have to, so that was very thankful. Anytime we don't have to do that, got a couple of the pumps that were scheduled to get rebuilt in the control building, so those are being worked on now, so that's,
read bid, do we know we're on the read bid?
Still waiting on the reed bed for the fields to be.
yeah, we're still waiting,
available.
yeah, obviously it got bumped to fall now,
Okay. Yeah.
they just
They have
didn't
to
get the
apply that.
spring.
Okay.
And I think that was in your amendment too, was it the budget stuff?
Yeah.
Or took care of that?
So we're gonna have to push it back
Yeah.
to this year, so.
Yep.
Should be this fall,
Yep.
and then hopefully we can.
I did find another source for the reeds too, so.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, yeah, just in another state, so.
It's a
which
good
is
company to get into.
okay. Yeah, yeah, really, so, got that taken care of, so that's about it for now, so.
Any questions for Clint?
Nope. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Next, the veto message, resolution number 2015-55 on the Sumner Avenue project, pay estimate number 14. This kind of came up after the last council meeting, when Dan and I were talking to Aaron, and one of the questions that I asked was, how much retainage do we have on the bridge yet? Because we know there's gonna be some problems here and stuff as far as for paybacks and things, and Dan, we just kind of questioning that. Which I knew, I assumed it was 5%, which I assumed it was 5% of $2.5 million, which was approximately $125,000 to $150,000. And Gloria then looked it up, she said it's $30,000, and I said, that can't be right. She said, well, it's actually, the only retainage we had was 3% of the $1 million of the DOT project. So we only had a $30,000 retainage left. We're looking at about $150,000 in damages so far, and additional fees for the architects and stuff, the engineering firm. I had no choice at that time but to veto what we had just passed and tear up the check until we could kind of get back onto this and stuff anyway, because we have no leg to stand on at $30,000.
Right.
So we were kind of, which to me was a very bad job in that engineering part,
Mhm.
that looked at an oversight, was gonna let us almost pay off the bridge and not, considering how much we're paying the engineering firm, I was very disappointed in them anyway, so.
And it was not.
No, I wouldn't. We're paying, what, $500,000 roughly or whatever for a bridge engineering firm that apparently doesn't care about Humboldt, Iowa, only cared about themselves. Was willing to charge us more money, but wasn't willing to help us to protect about it and stuff anyway, so.
Yeah.
So this is what the veto was about, was that we stopped the $200,000 payment. so that at least we have some leg to stand on now when it's time for final discussion anyway, so.
And I still think a lot of delays and everything that took place were engineering delays. You know, I still, you know, it's easy for the engineer to come in and say, well, the contractor took too long and he didn't get the job done, they didn't work hard enough, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. But I tell you what, a lot of those issues, just like the electrical issue, there's no reason that electricity shouldn't have been run and done. I mean, they should have never, engineers should have never pulled off the job or whatever without that damn electricity being run. And it just, but it's easy for him
Well, they get paid.
to blame the contractor. So
I think the contractor did a good job. I think they were here as much as they could be here.
The only, and Aaron will probably tell you more about them, the only problem the contractor did, in my estimation, was he's allowed so many working days, and he decided to work in the wintertime. He took short hours, but the engineering firm charges us the same with a short hour or a long hour.
Right.
So, in that token, we paid many, many days that they didn't have to work here, but they, according to Aaron anyway, at the meeting, was not kindly what the bridge company said, that I'll do whatever the hell I want, and that's what he did. He did whatever he wants. Well, because of that, we as a city are paying an extra $150,000 that I don't feel we should have to pay just because he didn't want to pull off the job anyway. So we're being penalized because of him, not because of anybody else in my estimation. He had a choice, and he made the choice to work in bad weather. Well, because of that, we're paying because of that choice. I mean, is there any way to look at that, Aaron?
No, I mean, so just to run it down, I had, after that meeting, I talked with the engineer and you know, he admitted this was an oversight. There's absolutely no way that they should have sent a pay estimate to us. What would have been left was roughly about $80,000. We're probably in the neighborhood of about 100 to 120,000 in liquidated damages. So we would have been short 60,000 just on liquidated damages, let alone assuming that there's no retainage left over for any of the, obviously, fixes that drag projects out for, 6 more months. So that would have obviously been an issue. But, so they'll resubmit that portion of it, but that takes, or resubmit that pay estimate. So that takes care of that issue. But the second issue is then really we have to start talking about liquidated damages in what we're thinking of assessing back to the contractor. It's $1,200 a day. And, like Walter said, the cost for the engineer, because it's a DOT project, any work that's done for the DOT has to be observed by an engineer. And they have to be there and on site, otherwise the DOT will not pay on that item. And so with that in mind, when we have short days and we have an engineer sitting on site, that costs us a lot of money for a very short period of time, very little benefit as far as moving the project forward. So what ended up happening was going into winter, when we realized we were gonna end up with cold weather protections, we were gonna end up with short days, and just honestly the project grinding to a very slow movement or halt. We had that meeting with the contractor. In that meeting, the conversation went essentially that we will suspend working days. You're not going to get charged any working days during this period if you pull off the job so that we don't have to keep an engineer here on site. Essentially, they'll just keep tallying once a week, no working days charged, whatnot. And so that's very low cost compared to keeping somebody here and then, it's snowy, so they gotta push snow off the bridge, or, it's dark after 6 hours, and they only get 6 hours worth of work in. Those sorts of issues compared to right now when you could get, probably about 3/4 of a day in almost. So, that issue ended up with a total of 131 days over contract, working days over contract. The total days the contractor works was 241 days. Of what is being viewed as flooding, utility, unanticipated conditions, the total days delayed was 81. Holidays, normal weather delays is 39. We're dealing with probably in the neighborhood of about currently about $100,000 worth of liquidated damages that could be attributable to what the engineer is stating is contractor delays. The other delays were, you know, these flooding and unanticipated, et cetera. And so they were never charged for those working days, even though we were 131 total days over. So that's where you get this amount from, is you back out, and we can go through week by week too. If you'd like, for the most part right now, we're waiting for a response from the contractor. The engineer stated that these working days are charged. I get a notice, the contractor gets a notice, the engineer sends these out every week. Here are the working days charged, you know, and there's a formal process that they protest those working days. There's never been any sort of protest filed on any of these working days charged, but the statement was made that they will absolutely not accept liquidated damages. against
Goverson
them.
Smith.
Yes, Goverson Smith. And so, the comment was made to them, well, if you protest them, then you really need to formally file some form of protest and give us a written explanation of what you believe the working days, why they should not be charged against you. And then there's a process for hammering that out between the parties. At this point, there's nothing that we can really go on other than what we have in front of us and the information that's supplied. And I think there is a very legitimate issue when they chose to proceed with winter work after being told that it would be essentially pushing the burden onto us, because we're going to end up with a large engineering bill to cover their working through the winter, which it gives them winter work. It's good for them, but it's very bad for us. But they can do what they want as far as moving the contract forward. So, I mean, at that point, I think that when they're making work for themselves, then I guess my opinion would be, if you're making work for yourself, then the city also needs to assess those liquidated damages to make up for the fact that we are getting assessed costs that otherwise would not be there during a 12-hour working day like during the summer. So, I guess that's my thoughts. But right now, we don't, until we get some response from Goverson Smith, I don't really know how you really consider.
What would you say the average cost of an engineer is to have here a day?
I think we're at, what did they say? When they came, I want to say they said 1,000 to 1,300
A day?
That's why the 100 days or 1,200 is 120,000.
Yeah, it's either a little bit better or worse than break even on liquidated damages.
So really, our liquidated damages is not so much that the inconvenience of not having the bridge
No.
for a year and a half.
You
or
really can't
whatever it was.
liquidate that, 'cause
The
you can't-
liquidated
you can't-
damages are what it cost us to pay the engineer because they were working during the winter.
And we
That's all we're
still,
looking at.
yeah, and we would still bear the cost for all those flooding. The flooding days, that
Right.
falls on us because they weren't charged working days for those. Any of the delays that were outside of the contractor's control, things that, the engineering days, the utilities not being moved on time that extra week, they were never
The water-
charged working days on
The water
those.
pipe, the
Yeah.
sewer pipe that needed to be moved.
Those are all-
That.
How about having to re-engineer the east pier there?
Yeah, the
They don't-
geological
They don't get working
imaging.
days on those.
We covered that.
We covered
So
that.
they stopped working days for 2 weeks for that re-engineering. So they were never charged a day, even though they were on site, because it was not a critical path item, it was not something that was absolutely important to moving the project forward so that they could do the next part of the bridge, then even if they're on site working, they don't get charged working days. Am I misstating this at all?
Nope.
I was gonna say, you guys do a bunch of DOT projects.
Yep.
We covered every one of those days, even if they weren't working, the city still paid for those days anyway, so that's not what we're looking for. These are just the days that they
No.
decided to work, and we're just,
You definitely have the basis, the fact that you have a cost incurred, and if you can prove a cost incurred due to the slowing of the progress,
Mhm.
I think they can have the discussion with the DOT, but you're following the DOT's regulations.
So, there's a process in place, and I'd be happy, I think that it's important that we listen to what Goverson's discussion is, but, I think it was pretty clear in the meeting that we had last fall between the engineer, Fuad, the president of WHKS, and myself and the president of Goverson Smith. There was a meeting, and it was made abundantly clear that they absolutely had no consideration for the city's cost would be. They said, we are allowed by DOT to move forward and we will. I said, all right, I guess we'll kind of suck. So, I mean, that's the thing, is I think I agree, I think they've done a great job. I've said all the way through the project, I think they're good contractors, they were very aware of making sure that, things were handled right. And they ran into a lot of problems on this, but, I would say a majority of those days that they were charged, you can find, if you look through the journals, you can see that there's a reason they were charged, and there was probably about a week where they weren't here, that they could have been here, it was good weather, but they had a deck puller, so they weren't here. That's not the city's fault, that's their fault when they pull their crew to a deck puller, so.
One of the days it came and it rained, a couple hours later, they left, we still got charged a full day for that, even though, so it's, Humboldt, just, I don't feel the citizens of Humboldt should have to pay additional monies for something that is beyond their control, that didn't have to happen. I guess if the bridge would have been delayed another, couple weeks or whatever and stuff, that they could have worked better 2 weeks in springtime, rather than they did half of the winter almost anyway, for time that they got done anyway, so.
There's no real action item, obviously this all sprang out of the veto message, but the real thing is just knowing that making sure that in conversations I'm following what the council's wish is, that we will, without some good explanation that we are gonna follow this path forward, otherwise I need to make sure that I'm communicating the intent properly. But at this point, you'll see a resubmittal. At that point, I will have the engineers come up and have this discussion formally. If there's no response from Goberson, then I think you start paying the pay estimate with the reduction of whatever you're anticipating, just like we did with IPT. You reduce it by whatever that number is that you believe that is gonna be left, and then pay out the rest, because right now there's 280,000 left on it, and there's not 280,000 liquidated damages, so we would have to pay, at least 100,000 of that, because we shouldn't be holding anything more than at least twice worth of work, the amount of work left over is, at that point, it's a little excessive. So we'll see that resubmittal at the next council meeting.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
All right, under unfinished business, we have a Corey with us tonight then to talk about wants to have a party on July 25th from 3 o'clock till 10 o'clock. He's closed down one of our streets in town, so I guess if you want to tell us about that, Corey, that'd be, before we get any further.
Pretty much what we want to do is we want to close the block down from front of my shop down to Hoyks. And that's it. We got a band playing, we're gonna have food, all kinds of stuff for the city to come in and see what we're all about. And our band plays from 4 to 10 o'clock at night. And we just want to have a good time. So,
Is this something, I've had some calls from people that live around